hello to this very short video. Glasses on because I'm waiting for an operation on my eye on this one. This is a very short video because I'm making a video called about countering propaganda, the alarmist propaganda. And what I've done is taken some recent broadcasts from the Isle of Man where my name's been mentioned, so it's fair that I come back and have a go, as it were. But in countering this propaganda, I come across a very simple one. Now, in this excerpt from Manx Radio, John Curtis is introduced as an expert, actually, in the energy industry. And at one point, he's asked about carbon capture, which I'll be going into in my main video. But he goes on to how much power is produced by a floating wind farm in Scotland, and there's only one. Now, the floating wind farm in Scotland got wrecked by the waves and weather, and so it's been taken off to Norway for major significant refurbishment, and that's been a long time now. But when it was producing at a high capacity. A load factor may be about 60%. So what I'm going to do now is look at what claim he makes and then just analyse it. This is the ridiculous propaganda that drives me mad and yet is meant to be coming from industry experts. Just watch this.
So that brings in Julian's comments about energy efficiency. Some of the wind turbines that are in the North Sea now are taller than the Eiffel Tower. They're floating structures. One turn of the blade provides electricity for 100,000 homes in one day.
That's a ridiculous claim. One turn of the blades provides enough electricity to supply the electricity to 100,000 homes for one day. Wow, incredible. That means there's 20 revolutions a minute on those turbines. So that means that, you could do 20 times 100,000, which is 2 million homes in just a minute. You can supply 2 million homes with enough. In fact, we don't even need the one turbine. That's all we'd need to supply the UK. And it's ridiculous claims like this that drive me bonkers. So let's examine it. Well, there we are. Large-scale turbines turned around about 20 revs a minute. I mean, it's not exact. It doesn't have to be exact for this because it's so way out. It's unbelievable. But let's take it as 20 RPM. So if there's 20 revolutions in a minute, one turn, which is what he's talking about, one revolution, is in 3 seconds. And that is supposed to power 100,000 homes for one day. Well, High Wind Scotland has 5 6-megawatt turbines in total. That's 30 megawatts in total, but we're talking about one turbine here. So how much power in 3 seconds does one turbine produce? Well, 3 seconds is 1/1200th of an hour. The turbine produces a max of 6 megawatts. And with a load factor as high as, say, 60%, which is very good indeed, windy offshore, perfect place offshore in Scotland, that produces 3.6 megawatt hours per hour. So now we know what the amount of energy is coming out per hour. So a 1/1200th of that is 3 kilowatt. So you've got 3 kilowatt hours. But you've got to divide the 3 kilowatt hours, which is probably enough to boil about 10 kettles, you've got to supply that to 100,000 homes. And the answer is that you're looking at 0.00003 kilowatt hours per home. Now, the average kettle uses 0.225 kilowatt hours to boil a full kettle. You've only got 7,500th of that available. You've got a tiny amount of that, which is 0.225 over 0.403. It comes out to 7,500. So you assume 5 minutes to boil a kettle. It would take you 37,500 minutes, or in other words, 625 hours to boil the one kettle, assuming you're using 100% of the power supplied to the house, and of course assuming there's no heat losses, because the amount of energy going in would not even replace the heat loss, so you'd never boil it. But I'm just trying to give you a perspective on how absurd this is. Now let's just assume I'm wrong. Let's just assume that it's not 20 revs per second, but 10, because it could be as low as that on some. All you do is double these figures. So instead of 625 hours, it's over 300 hours. You see, it's so ridiculous, it doesn't really matter. And this is the nature of these alarmists. They do the same, by the way. It's just as mad in the Isle of Man with your wind load factors. You know, your load factors are out by 200 to 300%, and no one is behaving in any way sensible with them. But this is just a short video clip, if you like, from the forthcoming countering the propaganda, and I'm using the Isle of Man as examples of the propaganda, but this applies right throughout the UK and the world. Well, at least the Greens put a whole new meaning to "a watch pot never boils."